Hello everyone, and thanks for joining. Welcome to today's KaiNexus Summer Updates webinar. My name is Jake Sussman and I'm the Director of Customer Experience for KaiNexus. Today I'm joined by Greg Jacobson, CEO and co-founder of KaiNexus. Amongst his many roles, Greg is also our lead of the product team.
Thanks, Jake. I am really excited about the summer updates. Our dev team, product team have been super busy, and I use the word team, Jake, and one of the things that I like to remind our customers is that while the dev team and the product team kind of feel front and center here, it actually takes an entire organization to be able to put out kind of this much continuous improvement in our platform. So, there's input from the marketing folks, even sales folks are giving us feedback from prospective customers, and then of course your team, Jake, the customer experience team, has to be completely integrated down from how are we communicating these things out to the support stuff. So this is really a culmination of a whole bunch of people's efforts throughout the last summer.
Absolutely. And we're really happy to have everyone joining us today. This webinar is actually the first of a series of platform updates webinars. We're going to go over all the features that we've released this summer, and then we'll do another kind of fall release and fall updates webinar towards the first of the year and a little bit after the first of the year to go over all of our updates that were released this fall. So stay tuned for this series, and we're really glad that you guys could join us today. In terms of housekeeping, we have a lot to go through throughout a relatively short amount of time. So Greg's going to present the updates and focus a lot mainly on the platform today for the majority of the time. 25 minutes is going to be dedicated to that. We'll then turn it over for a Q&A period during the last 5 minutes. For questions, please feel free to use the GoToWebinar meeting panel at any time during the presentation to submit a question. We'll be keeping an eye on those and address those towards the end of the time. Also, the recording of this webinar, a link will be sent via email at the end of the presentation to all registrants and attendees. So before we jump in and turn it over to Greg, we are going to just give you an idea of what we'll be covering today. And thematically, all of our updates have been focused on the following more or less five categories. We're going to talk through system and user organization. We're going to review some improvements to improvements. We're going to detail charts and reports, and then we'll finish up with the detail area enhancement. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Greg and let him jump right into the platform.
Awesome, Jake. Thanks so much. Let me just switch over to KaiNexus. All right. So we are live in a demo environment, and so I'm going to go through all the things that we kind of defined as helping with your organization. And the first area is we've got a ton of feedback that, in really not only feedback, but realize that people weren't using the alerts area, and we internally obviously are using KaiNexus to make the company KaiNexus better, and we love this alerts area. It really helps guide your workflow. So what we've done is completely redesign the alerts bell, but not only have we redesigned it, there's also a badge now that gives you some insight into how many alerts you have. And so when you click on that bell, we've actually divided up your alerts into a couple of different areas now. So one, you can have all of your alerts, but we've also given you a tab for just your alerts. So these are alerts that are related to improvements that you're associated with, and then also divided out our opt-in alerts. If you elected to configure your notification preferences and get notified about things that you aren't associated with, they're going to show up here in this area here called opt-in. So those are some of the improvements to the notification window. What I'm going to do is talk about a really cool feature, and we see this coming up a lot. So you have a lot of organizations that are really introducing continuous improvement to their organizations. And at the frontline level, the worst thing you can do is try to confuse someone. And so what they are coaching and recommending the middle management to tell their frontline people is just don't worry about if you get the information in the correct way in KaiNexus, just put it in. In kind of in that vein, sometimes when someone has an observation of an idea, it goes in as a just do it, but under further investigation, it becomes a lot more complicated. So I'm going to show you exactly how to convert an improvement from one improvement type to another. Not only can you do a improvement type to a different improvement type, but you actually take an improvement and change it from an improvement to a project as well. So in the More area here, you'll notice a brand new button called Convert. And all of the types of things that you have permission to convert to are going to show up in this new type. So for instance, let's say phone cords is a little bit more complicated and you actually wanted to recommend someone do an A3 on this. We could convert this into an A3. And instead of you losing that information, which was what you had to do prior to convert, you had to delete the improvement and put it back in, you can now simply map all of your prior fields to future fields. So in an A3 example, here you could say, well, description is the background and proposed solution is the current condition, or maybe that would be the outcome. And once you click on the convert button, it'll change this improvement from what was an OI into an A3. We think you're going to absolutely love that. All right, so let's stick with projects right here. And one of the things that we find people requesting is to be able to do a very similar improvement multiple times. So for instance, maybe you're really requesting people do a 5S in one of your departments, and it's a very similar type of improvement that you're kind of redoing over and over. Instead of having to resubmit that improvement every time, we've actually made a new feature here called Copy. And what Copy is great for is it will literally allow you to completely copy all of the details in phone core. You'll get a little confirmation window. It'll tell you exactly what it's going to do. And when you click continue, it'll actually create a copy of this improvement. And then you can take it from there, and it'll save you a ton of inputting data if you're doing very similar or identical improvements in different areas. Not only can you copy a improvement, but yep, you guessed it, you can also copy a project. So for example, here we have a project. We're doing a 5S project here. And let's just pull that up. You'll see now on projects, this 5S production cell, you're also going to find the exact same button here for copy. We think copy is really cool, and so we were like, well, where else could we put copy? And over the last year, people are just really using boards more and more and more. And they're creating boards for every location. So sometimes the CI experts are having to create 20 and 30 different boards. To make that a little bit easier, you now can copy an entire board right from here. And it gives you a little bit of instruction on exactly what's going to happen here. But this can save a huge amount of time, so you don't have to create the board, then create all the cards, and do that over and over and over again. You're probably thinking, oh, I wonder if you can copy a card. Well, yes, you can actually now copy a card. Sometimes these cards have really extensive filters, and you spent some time doing it, and you want to just take and do a small change to it. So now you'll see we have a lot of options here under copy card. You can actually copy this to this board. You can copy it to another board. You can copy it to list, and then you can even copy and subscribe. So we'll talk about subscribe here in a second. But let's do this. I want to go ahead and copy this card to a list. So I've just done that, and let's go take a look at our lists here. If you don't know about custom lists, you should definitely check those out. It would be an advanced kind of user feature here. So, but I've gone into my lists, and you'll see that I now have one called Copy of My Active. One of the things you can now do is actually say, some people have 10, 20, even 30 custom lists, but there's a couple lists that they're using frequently. So instead of having to kind of bury into the detail here, you can actually pop this button right here, and you can promote the list by clicking on the star. And when you do that, what it does is it pops it into your kind of main blue picker area. Just all things that will allow you to organize KaiNexus better and navigate around KaiNexus a lot easier. So let's take a look at one other thing. You might have noticed there's a whole bunch of new options here if you haven't seen this in a while. There's one here on the left, and that's subscribing. So had a lot of different use cases where people say, hey, I want to get an email of a certain kind of improvement in the morning. And one of the one I have in mind is someone said, hey, in the preceding 24 hours, can you please email me all the improvements that have been completed? So when I'm drinking my morning cup of coffee, I can look through and review all of them and dive into any of the ones that are of interest or that you think need to be reviewed by a CI person or whatnot. You can now do that by simply clicking on this button right here. It kind of looks like a little satellite. And when you click on that button, you're now subscribed to that list. And what it means is that that list is going to show up in your email inbox with all of the improvements that are on that filter every morning. We're really looking forward to seeing exactly how you guys use that. We think there's just going to be a lot of interesting applicability to that. So that's all of the improvements we made over the summer related to organization. All right, let's keep going. We've got a lot to cover. How are we doing on time, Jake?
Doing great.
All right, so I'm going to hop into a improvement here called temp. And one of the things that we're really trying to be careful about is we don't want to become a social media platform, right? I don't think that improvement work should be a popularity contest, but there are some things from kind of social media, from Facebook, from Twitter, that we think we can go ahead and use in a really appropriate and balanced way in continuous improvement work. And one of those was liking something. So now you have a like button right here. So if you want to go ahead and put this kind of on your favorites list or your likes list, you can go ahead and click on the heart. And what that does is it will not only show you that you've liked it, but as other people like it, you'll see the entire list of people that have liked it. We think it's just a great way to kind of tag things that you want to look at later, or show a little love, if you will, to the people that are working on a specific improvement. In that same vein, we got a lot of feedback, and we were doing this internally. A person would put in a comment, and you want to somehow tell that person, oh, I got it, I read your comment. There wasn't a great way to do that other than simply putting in another comment, which just generated more information going back and forth. Not very high value add there. And so what we've done is we put an acknowledge comment button right here, where if I want to tell Jeff, hey, I got it, thanks for letting me know you're researching it, I can just go ahead and click on that acknowledge, and that basically lets Jeff know, he can see exactly who's acknowledged it. That lets Jeff know that I've read it and I'm on board. And I think it's just a great way to kind of limit alerts and notifications back and forth, but still provide kind of meaningful value add information to another person. So that's like and thumbs up or acknowledge. All right, let's take a peek at something I just absolutely love. Aside from, I love most of the product Jake, but all right, so parts presentation is a great example of how we are making images more accessible and more visible front and center. We have a lot of organizations that are doing kind of before and after pictures on improvement. And so now when you are attaching a file, you have the ability to actually display it right in line with your improvement. So this is a great example of maybe a 5S before and after a parse presentation. When you do identify a file as being in the image area, you get this extra area up here on the top called images. You can click right on that. And we think you're actually going to really like this. And not only that, but dive a little bit more into the files. You can control exactly what shows up in the images area. You can control whether it shows up on the left side or on the right side, and enjoy. That's images. All right. Tons of improvements on charts. How are we doing on time?
We have about 11 minutes left.
Okay, so let's get into charts. Lots of improvements on charts. We're really excited about our customers using charts more and more and more. I think if you think about improvement work in general, there is the improvement work that you're doing, but if your improvement work isn't creating a benefit to the organization, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. We can certainly measure impact, and it's a great way to measure benefit, but the other way to look at benefit are really about KPIs. What is it that you're measuring? And so we are continuing to improve charts more and more and more. And so let's take a look. So if you haven't seen some of the work that we're putting on our website and content that we're making about strategy deployment, I highly recommend engage Jake and his team. We have more and more organizations that are putting their Hoshin Connery work into KaiNexus. They're displaying their strategy deployment plan in KaiNexus. They're doing the catchball process and putting some of the results of that in KaiNexus. So I'm going to go to a strategy deployment board here. And here you can kind of see how all of the improvement work is cascading and how it all relates. But let's just take a look at this Pareto chart that we've created over here called cause of defects. We've now added the ability to put labels on your left and right y-axis as well as your x-axis. Not only can you control your labels, but you can actually now do a PDF of a chart, whether you want to email that or whether you want to print that out and put it on a bulletin board. And on the data side of a chart, you can now download the data into Excel. Highly requested features that we have released this summer. Not only can you control your labels now, but you can also control some more customization. So let me show you here. All right, so I'm going to look at this Gemba walks, or this falls per month board down here, chart down here. And what you can see here is that we're handling decimals now with a much higher fidelity. So if you are measuring data that's in decimals, you probably noticed before sometimes that was kind of awkwardly displayed. I think we've nailed it now. Please give us feedback on the way we're handling decimals a lot better. We've also done a lot of really great work on, let me show you here, open Gemba walks. So I think we're here, here, here. Go to this board right here, and we have a Gemba walks chart in here that I want to show you. I'm sorry, we have a total revenue chart in here that I want to show you. And we might be running into a little bit of internet slowness. I think GoToMeeting got a little slow there for a second. And I think we're back up. All right, so I've got this cost total revenue chart here down on the bottom right. One of the pieces of feedback that people were giving us is that they wanted to be able to control the range of a chart. So it didn't always necessarily can start at the lowest most number and end at the highest most number. So you can now do that. So when you click edit, you have a new option here called options. And you can actually control the range of your left axis, your y-axis, and let me show you what that looks like. So you saw how that chart looked before, but if I change this to change the range, you're going to see how that's actually going to really change the layout of this type of chart. And I think as people are putting more Pareto charts in, more control charts, being able to control the range. So on a Pareto, you have 0 to 100% on the right side. Being able to control the range on a control chart are going to become more and more important. So please check out those features. We think you're going to love it. All right, reports. Really cool improvements to reports. So people love our reports. They are getting insight into things that are going on in their improvement culture that they just didn't have before. But one of the pieces of feedback that we were getting is there's just a lot of clicks to get to the information. So for instance, if I want to look at the submission versus completion, and then I want to pop over to the engagement, and then I want to look at the impact, that just takes a lot of different clicks to go through there. So what you can now do is put reports right on your board. Let me show you what that looks like. It's really cool. So I've got an Austin board here, and I've got the 4 different kinds of reports that you can put on the board all displayed here. You can control exactly what report you are displaying by clicking the edit button here. So you can see I've named this card. I've gone ahead and it's showing the Austin Hospital 6-month view. So you can set these up for all of your departments or your locations. And really, I mean, this is where when people are saying, how can we use KaiNexus to do better visual management, boards is really where it's at. And making sure that the boards are telling the story, giving the information that you want people to see. So take a look at that. You'll basically add a report by clicking on add and then adding a report type.
And just to echo Greg quickly, there are tons of variations here for adding reports to boards. They don't have to be grouped with other reports. You can group them with improvement list, project list. We have tons of customers who are using reports on the huddle boards that they run out of KaiNexus. So lots of options here, and just very, very, very configurable.
Thanks, Jake. And I'll also remind you, if you have any questions about kind of what we've done, directions we're heading, just toss them in the question panel here on the GoToWebinar, and we will definitely get to them at the end. All right, so let's take a look at one really cool report that we snuck in. So we have added what's called a location cycle time board. And what this report does is it tells you by location how long an improvement has sat in every status. So if you're trying to figure out, why is an improvement thriving in a place, or why is improvement thriving in a place, you can now start to see exactly, well, when someone puts an improvement in, how long does it sit? How long are things sitting in overdue status? And we've actually been running and collecting data in the background since June, and if you haven't discovered this report yet, I highly recommend that you take a peek there, and I think you're going to get a lot of insight into the different type of, really the cycle time of your improvement work, and really be able to, I think, coach a lot better into kind of, we think of KaiNexus in some ways as a smoke detector. How can the data alert you as a CI professional to the different areas of your organization that do and don't need your help, because you can't be everywhere at once. And I think you're going to get a lot of really great information from a cycle time board. So take a look at that. We've also added filters to a lot of these boards. So if you'll notice, there's a little filter button now on most of the reports in the reports area. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to say, well, I don't want to look at all improvements in this time frame. Maybe you just want to look at A3s. And so let me show you that this organization has just started doing some A3s, so they don't have a lot here. You can just easily clear those, but it gives you an idea of how you can kind of parse out the data even further. And that filter has been added to many of these reports where it makes sense to filter that report by a certain data set. So take a look. If you have wanted to filter in the past, you'll be able to do some really advanced filtering. Okay, great. That wraps up reports. We did a really cool thing in a lot of our organizations, especially when they're either trying to kind of re-energize a department, maybe they're trying to work on a certain problem in an organization, and we've seen this also used in kind of initially rolling out improvement work at an organization, but they want to run a challenge. They want to say, hey, certain department, or hey, organization, I want everyone thinking about a specific topic and see if we can't solve that. So I'm going to go over here to projects, and I've got a reduce paper usage project up here. And you can see kind of in the old school project framework, you have sponsors, facilitators, leaders, and participants. But we've added a really neat feature that allows you basically to run challenges, and it's called participating locations. So right now we have none, but we've got a little info icon here, and it describes exactly what happens. But you can add an entire location or multiple locations to a project now. We'd probably recommend you call them challenges at that point. And all of the people in that location or locations will be able to submit improvements to that challenge specifically. So this is a really, really great way to kind of reinvigorate or introduce front lines to doing improvement work, and a great way for you to kind of align your senior leaders' challenges, if you will, and figure out how can you mobilize your organization to start working and thinking about those. Great. All right, so the last area is about this kind of details area. The more customers we have, the more use cases we have, the more people are really pushing the edge on what is an improvement and what is a project. And up till today, what existed as part of an improvement or project template were fields and attributes. And we got a lot of feedback that says, well, we want a field to be a very specific element. Maybe we want a field only to be a number, or maybe we want a field to be a string of numbers and a string of letters, or maybe we want a field to simply be a date or a percentage. And you can now do that. So let me show you what that looks like. All right, so We have a lot of organizations that use KaiNexus to do their green belt classes or do any type of improvement work type of class. So we've got a green belt class here. And you'll see we've identified this project as having a class topic, and that's it. We've also got kind of normal attributes down here. But I'm going to go ahead and edit this, and we've created, and this is just one example of what you could do, a number field, calling it number of attendees, and also a date field. Maybe this is a registration date line. And so what that ends up looking like is if I try to put in a word here, it's not going to let me. But I can go ahead and put a number in, and then I get the calendar right here. Let's say we'll give, what do you think, October 14th. If you're not signed up by October 14th, you can't get in this class. So now all of a sudden, this is going to show up in this detail field. What I love is when we release something like this, and then our customers really push us and show us different ways that they can model the type of improvement work they're doing in here. So I'm really looking forward to see where this goes. We can do a whole bunch of different configurations and a lot of different kinds of validations, and I think it's going to be a really kind of eye-opening way to use KaiNexus. So that's details. I think that kind of wraps up the areas that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, just one thing on details. These are still questions that we will have to, and changes that we will have to make for you on the KaiNexus side. So if you're interested in reconfiguring any of your improvement framework or project framework, please reach out to myself or Becca, and we can get those changes made for you.
Great.
So just to go back to Q&A, there's one question that came in, and it was around being able to copy a task.
Oh, yeah, so that's great. That's definitely in the wheelhouse. Tasks, we have a lot of really interesting ideas on, and we'll probably actually be talking about that at our user conference coming up. If you haven't signed up for our user conference, highly recommend it. It's going to be in Austin on the 3rd and 4th. Aside from the entire team there, you're going to get access to the development team. We're going to go into some deep dives about some really awesome things that we're going to be releasing, but also we're going to go into dives into where you'd like us to go. So, for example, with tasks, to answer the question, definitely going to be copying tasks, frequent tasks, and even task dependencies are all things that we've gotten requests around, and I would imagine are going to be areas we'll be developing in the product in the future.
Great. Thanks, Greg, and thanks everyone for joining and pushing us to always be releasing the new features. That is all we have for you today. Our next webinar is going to be on October 13th. That's another episode of Ask Us Anything with Mark and Greg.
Those are really fun. They're really relaxed, informal. People have been, it was an experiment. We ran a Ask Us Anything episode 1. We had so many questions, we didn't get through them, and we've kept the questions open, and we still haven't even seen the bottom of the list. And so it's a great podcast also. A lot of these webinars translate really well into podcasts, and some don't. I would probably say the summer updates one wouldn't be a great podcast because you have to see it. But the Ask Us Anything are great ones, and they're a lot of fun, very informal.
Great. As always, please visit our website for all the webinars we have on demand, as well as the KaiNexus blog and customer blog. It's really where we showcase a lot of what our customers are doing in the platform that might not be obvious. We really highlight interesting use cases, unique use cases, and so that's always a great resource for people who are looking to take their improvement work up to the next level.
And finally, thanks so much. This has been just super fun. Jake actually recommended that we start this as a webinar series. Jake, you want to talk a little bit about that?
I think that we're doing so much work on the development side of the house here that always might not be obvious and might not be kind of second nature to someone who jumps into the platform. So this series is a way to inform our customer base of all of the cool stuff we've been up to thematically and really point out things that might not be really obvious when you log into the platform. And we just want to use this time to make you aware of these new features and keep everyone on their game.
We're going to be releasing some really cool things at the user conference. The next one of these, though, will be our fall updates, which will likely be in the first weeks of January, so we're not conflicting with Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and all that. So that should be a lot of fun as well. Thanks so much for joining in, and I look forward to talking to everybody whenever I talk to you next and seeing you at the user conference.
Thanks, guys.